Okay, I see it has started. Okay, welcome everyone today. We are with the Caribbean Philanthropic Alliance today, and we're talking about our Caribbean tree planting project. We are live on Facebook and also have some participation with our main members on our Zoom link. So today, as we are going through reflections of Earth Day across the Caribbean for 2021, we have today one of our contributors as an expert, and he is Mr. Darren Henry. So hi, Darren. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know you have a tight schedule. Um, Darren is, I'm going to do a very short introduction of Darren. And very quickly, our agenda would be, we would be talking and having a discussion with Mr. Henry and his respective job as an expert forester, as well as facilitating some questions and comments from our Caribbean tree planting ambassadors across the Caribbean. And then we will take you through our Save Our Seed campaign with Jamila. And to wrap up, we will be doing a short PowerPoint presentation that will indicate all our events, and even some that weren't able to supply us as pictures as yet, but we will be talking about the things that happened across the Caribbean last week for Earth Day. So thank you all for joining us again. So Mr. Darren Henry. Mr. Henry is Assistant Conservator of Forests at the Department of Natural Resources and Forestry at the Tobago House of Assembly. So for all our Caribbean viewers, we have two islands that make up the Trinidad and Tobago Republic. And of course, we would have agencies located in both islands that try to work together for unified causes across the two islands that make up Trinidad and Tobago. So he is with the Tobago House of Assembly, which is the main organization that helps manage government and political affairs in Tobago. So he has a Bachelor of Science degree in Forest and Environmental Land Management from the University of Central Lancashire. He has a diploma in Botanic Garden Management from the KEW Gardens of London and a diploma in Tropical Forest from the Tropical Forestry from the Eastern Caribbean Institute of Agriculture and Forestry. He is also a member of the Environment Tobago. Environment Tobago is also one of our lead NGOs helping facilitate the Caribbean tree planting project in Trinidad. And he has been a forest officer for more than 20 years. He is also a hike leader with the Trinbago Backpackers Hiking Club, and he is part of the Canby Mount Pleasant Village Council. He also helped start the Highway Beautification Project in 2001 and is responsible for installing trees in streets and roadways. So thank you so much, Mr. Henry, for joining us today and being able to be a part of this short but important online event as we try to engage more and advocate more for tree planting across the Caribbean. So, Mr. Henry, tell us a little more about your job at the Forestry and Natural Resource Department at the THA, and you feel free to give some insights on if and how you all have been implementing or utilizing the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically or particularly, because I know there's 17, but particularly with regard to food security and of course climate change and life above land.
Thank you, Talya, and thank you to the listening audience. Um, my job, I am responsible for overall management of the forest and state lands in Tobago, responsible for ensuring that the private foresters, they adhere and comply to all the regulations that governs the forest industry on the island. Also responsible for planning and implementing civicultural work on the island. Those are some of the general responsibilities that I have.
And
Right.
what about in terms of changes that you've been noticing with regard to reporting and just the whole sustainable development goals? Um, have you seen it having an impact in your job and how you go about um, implementing?
Well, actually, we have to, things have changed. We cannot just go about working as usual. We normally have to now line up our work program
Mm-hmm.
to attain sustainable, to achieve the goals, the sustainable development goals. So we have to now align our work program with those, with achievement of those sustainable goals.
Okay. And as an expert on forestry, Um, what insights do you have on trees and forest ecosystems as um, it pertains to the theme of Earth Day this year was restore our Earth? How important do you see this fundamental living organism, the tree, and of course their ecosystems that they make? How important do you see it to that whole goal of restoration and restoring of the earth?
Okay, many of you already know that trees are the lungs of the earth. They sequester carbon from the atmosphere and they produce oxygen for us to use. And according to the United Nations Intergovernmental Planet and Climate Change, scientists, their scientists would have suggested that by, by us adding 2.5 billion acres of forest to the world could drastically halt global warming by 2.7 degrees by estimated 2050. But in order to achieve this, we need to plant 1 trillion trees.
Right.
Um, Trees also provide habitat for numerous wildlife species. And in return, some of these wildlife species are responsible for the dispersal of some of those trees to ensure continuity of the forest or the range of certain particular tree species is expanded. For example, there are some relationship with the agouti, which most Caribbean countries have, and a particular tree species in Trinidad and Tobago called Carpa guyanensis, locally known as crabwood in Tobago and crapo in Trinidad. So the agouti will feed on the seeds of this fruit, and then it will hide it or store it. Sometimes it may remember where it store it, and at times it might attempt to go back to it too late. So by the time it reached back to its spot, these seeds would have already germinated into young seedlings. Also, there are another relationship we could talk about is the one with the squirrel and the
Right.
licania or wild cocoa. And the same thing happens. The squirrel will store the seeds and then sometimes they get back to the seeds too
Right.
late or they just don't remember, for want of better words, where they store it. And these seeds will germinate. We also have some other unique situation where we have a cecropia ants that will live in the cecropia tree. It actually protects the tree from grazing animals, and produces a sugar gland. So the ants feed on the sugar gland, and therefore it also protects any kind of vines or any other plant from growing on the cecropia. Cecropia is a tree that is found more or less throughout most of the Caribbean islands. Um, some trees also, because of their age, they have their own unique ecosystem within them. We could refer to
Right.
them as veteran trees, trees that are very old or trees that would have withstood a particular event, whether it's a hurricane from 19 in the 1940s or so. And and in Tobago, we have those trees that form part of our cultural and historical landscape. And not only in Tobago, but I think I could safely say throughout some of the Caribbean region. Two of those trees would be the salmon and the silk cotton. Some people call it kapok of the islands, they call it kapok. right?
Yeah.
We lost one of our famous trees in Tobago last December from heart rot. And when that tree fell, we could have identified at least 20 other plants growing on that host tree. It had numerous invertebrate species and numerous birds. So that in itself, those veteran trees have a whole unique ecosystem or habitat than the surrounding area in which they persist. Um, you want to say something, Talia? I see like you were saying something.
No, no, no. I find it so interesting that we talk about the forest as an ecosystem, and yet within the forest themselves, we have these veteran trees that them by themselves form their own little micro ecosystem or micro and have a own microclimate, and they have all these symbiotic relationships. And it just made me recall in Trinidad, we had some magnificent salmon trees in both the Queen's Park Savannah and Arangwe Savannah. And I remember being so heartbroken when you just after major rainy season we had and some other events. I think in the Arangwe Savannah they had a big political rally, and these trees, after being there for probably hundreds of years, they just fell over. And I remember looking at the root system and wondering how far these roots went down, because of course the roots broke off, and the big gaping hole that was left in these savannas. So that's quite interesting and important for us to remember, as I said, with the tree itself being able to have its own micro ecosystem.
Well, additionally, we trees are important for us to plant because they can restore damaged land and even restore riparian areas or river areas. And according to Trillion Tree Campaign, 75% of fresh water is basically produced by forests, and trees are the main component that make up the forest. Trees, because of the microclimate they create, they attract clouds and create clouds themselves, producing another its own unique microclimate in the surrounding area. All know that trees intercept raindrops and
Right.
encourage water to infiltrate and percolate into the soil. They keep river or water temperatures lower, and it reduces evaporation rate. So it's very important to have trees around our water bodies. We know they hold soil together, stabilize river banks, act as flood control measures, and
Mm-hmm.
trees protect our coastline from storm surges, as especially the mangrove. We know that event that took place, I think it was 2004, 2005, that tsunami that about 200 to 300 persons would have lost their life in 2004, 2005. It was shown that some of the mangroves were felled or removed. So
Right.
mangrove trees, each tree have its own function. That's why trees are located in particular and strategic ecosystem along the saline conditions. You have
Mm-hmm.
trees there that you would not find on the interior because of the condition
Mm-hmm.
that persists.
What about, as you mentioned, mangroves? I remember for Forest Day, um, there was a focus by the IMA on mangroves. How much, as a forester who knows the intrinsic value, how much or what impact do you see with the restoration of mangroves across the Caribbean? Because I know what we would have is in the Caribbean, you would have a competition type of um, factors that affect development versus conservation. And our coastal areas are always keen for development, but yet the mangrove is important. So as an expert, how do you think we can balance that, as small island development states who still need to develop, but we know how much how important the mangrove is.
We need to somehow find a balance between development and maintaining the ecology or sustainability of the environment. We know the important role that mangrove play in terms of nursery for fisheries, um, water retention, flood mitigation,
Mm-hmm.
soil stabilization or soil formation, and also one of the main thing is reduce the impact of waves in terms of
Right.
erosion. But somehow we need to find that balance. So there are times when we may lose, and it's really important in the Caribbean because we are more or less susceptible to climate change and
Right.
sea level rise. So it's really important for us to rehabilitate and ensure that our coastline are stabilized. And if we can increase the amount of mangroves that we have on our island, will also assist us. But we have to find that way that means that development could happen. Whether we do go eco and you put small eco lodges that don't really have any major impact, negative impact on the environment, and also keep it within the mangrove because mangroves are one of the best places you could go and do bird
Yeah.
watching and all those things. You get tannin from mangrove. So, we just have to find that balance. The scientists, the advocates like us, and the scientists and the builders or developers, we need to come together and find the best means of protecting our mangroves and ensuring that there is some level of development because a lot of the Caribbean islands, we depend on tourism or economic development. We depend on tourism. So just to find that right balance.
And being, do you think as a public sector entity and being relatively at the level where you could advise and help make decisions that um, we are now getting a better balance between development versus conservation. At least I know you can't speak for the rest of the Caribbean, but at least from a Trinidad and Tobago point of view, um, that you see that better type of respect from developers and development for, or is
Well,
it that you still have an important role?
well, we all have an important role to play. We just have to. One of the key things we need to push is public awareness, education, and public awareness campaigns. We need to push that. We need to push education and public awareness so we could get buy-in from members of the public to support. Because in in
Right.
we really need to just push that education and public awareness campaigns.
Okay, so I know that um, the NGOs, at least within the Caribbean, we have an important role to work with you guys to help with the advocacy and the awareness and education of the regular folk and even the folk that are in the decision making um, positions, so they themselves value it more. Um, and that way I think the trees and forest conversation that we're having and we're promoting, it would be a more structured approach to dialogue and working together. um, as we speak about that, we have um, two of our ambassadors here today, Jamila and Sean, and they have a little comment and question they would like to ask you. So if you could share your knowledge and share your expertise with them. And, this is a demonstration of us being able to work together and share information among the generations as we take the work forward. So Jamila, feel free to jump in. I know you were
Blessings.
anxious to ask a question. This is Jamila Falak, one of our Caribbean ambassadors out of Jamaica. Take it away, Jamila.
Hi, Jamila.
Blessings, Mr. Henry. Thank you so much for your
Thank
insights.
you.
I'm Jamila Falak. I want to say thank you for especially mentioning the veteran trees that you have in Trinidad. It's very interesting.
I think we lost Jamila.
Restoration of,
Jamila, you need to repeat. You got cut off for about
yes,
a
the
few seconds.
restoration of the earth.
What she mentioned was
Okay,
the
are you hearing
veteran
me
trees.
now?
Right. Yeah, better, Jamila.
Yeah, I'm hearing you now. Go ahead.
Hello?
Jamila,
Yeah.
if you're having a little trouble with your audio and camera, what I've noticed is if you just take off the camera and just leave the mic on, it picks up better.
Okay. All righty. Are you guys hearing me now?
Yeah.
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Awesome. So I was just saying thank you, Mr. Henry, for mentioning your veteran trees, sharing your sustainable goals with us, which I find to be very important in restoring the earth, be it coastal, of the land, keeping the river temperatures lower, as you said, and reinforcing the fact that trees are indeed the lungs of the earth.
Yeah.
Right? Just double checking if you guys are hearing me.
Yes, we are.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. So, okay, awesome. So for commemorating Earth Day, on my end, it wasn't just a day for me, and it's never just a day for me. As a matter of fact, it it was sort of a whole commingling of events on my end, because what I did, or made sure that I did, was to have a couple stops on my tree planting tour. I'm currently doing a local initiative. I'm a musician, and what I'm doing is I'm merging my craft of which one of them is the mission is to plant trees, clearly, right? So the initiative is called the Plant and Play, and I've done a couple stops so far, but for this month commemorating Earth Day and month, I've done 3 stops. Far went to the Maroon, Mama G's in Portland, Jamaica, and we planted a coconut tree there. We planted an ackee tree in Moortown, which one of our national heroes resided when she was alive. She's the only female national hero here in Jamaica. Her name is Nanny of the Maroons, and we planted an ackee tree there, donated that to them, and then we planted a naseberry tree at Steam Team JA. So those were really, really awesome events on my end. We mixed the merge of, uniting the communities and playing music and being in upful spirits, So it was really a beautiful vibe. So I also engaged in a Save a Seed campaign.
We Save a Seed campaign.
Fellow tree planting ambassadors, a few of us got to do this video. Yes, the Save a Seed campaign. I got to engage in that, and a few of us did it. The point is, we'll be mentioning that later on in the program. We'll be showing that video, and I want to say a special thank you to everybody who took part in that. But most importantly, we'd like your feedback on a couple things. So, Mr. Henry, what are some of your opinions, or what is your opinion on some of the food trees and their seeds that would be good to feature in this campaign, for example? Because the whole point is to get persons to plant more trees, but to also save their seeds in doing so. So we just want to know, what are some of the great food trees that you think we could easily just germinate? One, they're easy to care. People can't bother with the stress and all of that. So we just want something that's easy to care for, and gives a healthy fruit, and gives food in the short space of time. Just in case persons are wondering, why isn't my seed growing? Something that really and truly can come in due time.
Yeah, at least before and before 10 years, like 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
In terms of, I just want to make a general statement before I answer the question. There's a really dire need for a seed bank in the Caribbean.
Right.
because we're going to be losing our genetic material
I
basically.
agree.
So, right. So we need that. But in terms of that type of planting fruits in the forest, I would use mango, Mangifera indica. We are aware that we probably have about 70 species in Trinidad and Tobago, and that plant is, I think, originated from India that have about 1,500 species. We have some unique ones, like not too sure about what you call them in Jamaica, but we have things like turpentine and Peter's mango, litapa. The litapa that is called litapa on the north side of Tobago is called something else on the other side of Tobago. So nevertheless, mango is very important. I would use some of the plums, even though they don't really grow by seed, but they can grow easily by cutting, quick growth. The Jamaica plum, that's the red one with the kind of bump at the end, or the yellow one also. The plums, I would use the plums. I would try things like pomarac and soursop. Those are at least four of the things that I will we would recommend for that type of activity: mango, pomarac, plums, and soursop. I'll use those. Hello, Jamila there?
Okay, thank you. I do agree with you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
And thanks, Jamila.
I'm
That's
saying
an
I do
important
agree with
question.
you.
Yeah. And what it is
Yes,
I
thank you.
what what
Um,
I what we need from what we might need a next campaign too on grafting. So we teach people how
yes,
to
that
graft
would
certain
be
trees.
awesome.
No,
That would be
well, you
awesome.
remember,
And
you
I
remember.
do co-sign the seed bank.
Yes.
I think a seed bank is really needed.
Yes. What was that you were saying, Darren?
I was just, as she mentioned that, remember, Julie mangoes can't grow from seed. Julie mangoes have to be grafted. But the other
Right.
mangoes and them, like the mango veer, you call it in Trinidad, we call it long mango in
Yes.
Tobago.
Normal.
That could grow easily by seeds.
Yes.
Or what the other thing too, if you can't get them to grow by from seeds, you could use what we call wildings. You go out in the field, you find
Right.
a mangrove tree where with thousands or hundreds of seedlings below you, just take that and carry to a nursery and um and nurture it basically, and then put it out in the
All
field.
all those ideas are so important for us as we try to also I like that idea as well too. We have some schools that are on some forest area and we could go into the forest and capture some seedlings from under these trees because we just need to find more innovative and um, ways to access the trees that we want to also be able to give out and a low cost way. So and that's a nice activity to plan to go out and do some wilding and retrieve some already wild species growing in the forest. So we also have Sean here. Thanks so much, Jamila. That was such a fantastic question and comment. And I know we're going to get to the PowerPoint and where we'll talk more about what was happened on Earth Day itself.
Yeah.
So we have
Awesome.
Sean who also has a question. Sean from Environment Tobago. Go ahead, Sean. Feel free.
Right. So before I answer, before I ask the question, I would just share a little bit about what we did here in both islands in Trinidad and Tobago for this day. We had an adventure. We actually trekked to the southwest of the island. It's a relatively long drive from where we were coming from. Unfortunately, the entire team could not join us due to the COVID-19 restrictions that were just reinstated. We had a spike recently in the cases, so the government saw it fit to just put a cap on the amount of people in groups. All right, but we had a great time. We actually went to Point Fortin, which is one of the towns or the areas in the southwest of the island. Lovely drive, and we met with two schools, representatives from two schools. We went to the Salazar Government Primary and the Point Fortin RC Primary as well, and we planted some breadfruit as well as jamun. And I think the teachers, sorry, Talya?
Don't forget the primrose.
And the primrose as well. And I think the good part about it is that the teachers were very receptive to the idea of engaging more with schools and engaging more with the school system. I think one of the important things in terms of what we're doing here with the Caribbean tree planting project is collaboration, and that actually brings me to my question for Mr. Henry. How important is collaboration in your work, and what do you think can be done to enhance the way we go about collaborative efforts such as these?
In our line, my line of work, collaboration is very, very important. And since I've been in the department, we have always collaborated with the NGOs on the island. Environment Tobago, Eric, Hands for Marge, Book Reef Trust, schools, you name it, we have always collaborated because there are sometimes and there are things sometimes that we as government agency cannot lead in certain situations, and we collaborate with the NGO and have them lead basically. We network because we are all here advocating for the benefit of the environment, for want of better word. One of the things that could be done is that it could be more structured in terms of having official, whether it's an MOU or something more structured, because sometimes, for example, we collaborate with other government agencies too. Sometimes when I mean that in more structured, sometimes that you get things done due to the fact that you may know somebody working in a ministry or a department. And you will call them because you and them went to school, or your neighbor, you call them and you get things done. But outside of that, when these persons move on to other areas, the connectivity or the networking is reduced or lowered basically. So in that light, I think there needs to be a more structured or formal approach to collaborating here in Tobago.
Thank you so much for those comments. One thing I wanted to ask as well, in terms of the structure of these collaborative efforts, do you think it's important for, as you said, NGOs or civil society groups to take the lead in this more so than public sector?
I would say it depends on the situation. Yes, there are certain situations where, as I mentioned before, where the NGOs could take the lead, the active lead, and there might be situations where the government may be, a few situations where the government might be able to take the lead, but a win-win situation for both.
And in your experience, in your you know, your goings on your projects and things like that, in your line of work, could you give like perhaps one example of where a collaborative effort would have happened and it, you know, went more or less towards meeting some of the SDGs in that sense?
Well, I'm sure if it was lined up to the SDGs, but a few years ago, we would have formulated, one of the officers came up with the idea of doing a main range forest fitness challenge. And that would have, it would have required that funds be collected. And as such, the department would not have been able to collect that kind of fund. So I think it was one of the NGOs, I think it was ET, would have kind of led in that aspect of it in order to promote the main Rich Forest Reserve. It was a promotion drive about the main Rich Forest Reserve for people being aware of the main Rich Forest Reserve and how old it is, because actually I think this year it's about 244, 45 years old, being the oldest forest reserve. So that was about 2 years ago. We started that initiative on the 13th of April, actually, 1776. So that kind of, we collaborated, and I think the NGO would have led that, was the forerunner in that aspect through Mr. Lovelace at the time, who was at your organization. As one thing I recall off the bat. There are others, but that is what come to the forefront.
Okay. And in terms of Tobago's involvement, because we know that the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is usually sometimes swept under the rug because of, the size and the geography and the population. But Tobago is a very important contributor in terms of how we deal with the biodiversity that exists, particularly in places like the biosphere in Northeast Tobago. How important do you think it is for Tobago and Tobago's role? How important is Tobago's role in everything that is being done regionally?
And with that question to Sean, I know both of you all. So one of the important things we want to bring out of this conversation is the method in which we can learn from each other that's happening on all the islands and share ideas for projects. So I know Sean may have more insight. I know Darren does know a little bit about it. As you mentioned the word biosphere, I know there was this project called Man on the Biosphere. So Darren, maybe you could give us some insight in terms of how you think the collaborations could work for actual, that type of biodiversity and utilization of partnerships. And then Sean could probably give us a little insight onto the Man and the Biosphere actual project. Not too long, because, we have a little presentation we want to do as well.
Um, Collaboration, as I said again, is really, really important. I think there needs to be something more structured because I think it was more or less under the environment unit of the Tobago House of Assembly, but
Right.
so there needs to be more formalized. I was of the opinion basically that all those, the forestry and the environment unit could have probably been we were under the same umbrella, and with my opinion is that we should have remained under the same umbrella because sometimes they are overlapping of
Work and
portfolio.
resources, right.
You don't want any doubling of the effort. You just
Right.
want one single directive, basically. So that's my personal opinion. And we could it need to be more structured, or in cases like that, you have things that you call MOU or memorandum of
Mm-hmm.
understanding of how each sector what they're exactly responsible for and how they supposed to function in terms of management of the whole environment and the natural resources, because
Natural
all the
resources.
the forestry responsible for the forest resources, and then you have like environment carries out the portfolio of the EMA in Trinidad, and
Right.
they might be responsible for like signing things on behalf of the government in certain
Mm-hmm.
aspect, and you have forestry, and so sometimes it could be a little not too clear. So I
Right.
think we need to sit down and think over all the arrangements and probably maybe in long run put everybody, in my view, under one general umbrella basically, because there are a lot of overlapping issues in terms of who is responsible for what, and by the time you decide or you figure out who is responsible for what,
Mm-hmm.
Rome burned down.
And
Just
I
a
think this might be
just a figure of speech. Just
yeah.
for
I know the figure of speech. And I think this may be a case that is seen all over the Caribbean where we have counterparts that all over are challenged by this way that we got accustomed to doing things, which is, as you say, calling on your own little personal network and being able to accomplish that. But then when people move on and people trade places and departments get separated, as you indicated, that happened in Tobago, the work cannot be done as effectively as it can be because the resources are not there and available and the manpower as well. And I think this is something another regional conversation that probably needs to happen at a CARICOM level as well too, where we set directives for all the countries that they put more structure to their environmental management and programs and all the departments that fall under and all of that. Sean, very, very quickly, so we could have it as an example for the other Caribbean countries listening in. Very quickly, what is the Man and the Biosphere project and how that project is aiding in use of resources and collaboration?
Okay, so actually the Man in the Biosphere is really and truly a UNESCO designation that
Right.
happened last year. Now, the beauty of that is that they have earmarked, or they have identified the northeast area of Tobago, particularly within the Main Ridge Forest Reserve, as a natural habitat for biodiversity and a wealth of other plant and animal life. So based on that, the man in the biosphere designation is very important in the sense that it gives Tobago that edge in terms of recognition. And it also opens Tobago up for more research to be done and more observation and conservation drives as well. So aside from it just being something for Tobago to be proud of, it's also something that the region can be happy about in terms of the biodiversity and all that is there in the Caribbean region. And just to wrap up on that, in 2019, Mr. Henry, you would have obviously been around for that. The Tobago Environmental Partnership Agreement was signed, and the then Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly would have signed off on that agreement. And Mr. Henry would have been aware of that collaborative effort. So in terms of collaboration, Tobago seems to be very much spearheading efforts along with the biosphere designation that was given by UNESCO last year.
And this is something that I think other Caribbean islands we could develop a case study and share with our Caribbean brothers and sisters, where they themselves, if they have the natural habitats, could also try to achieve certain protection and designations that, there's a number of them under UNESCO and the United UNDP. And, we have Ramsar sites for the swamps. So I think it's something we need to look at as a region, particularly in the theme of restoring our earth. So thanks so much, Jamila and Sean, for adding to the conversation and dialogue today. I would now like to take us directly into the Save a Seed campaign with Jamila Falak. So very quickly, as Andrea loads up the video, I will do a quick intro. So the Caribbean tree planting ambassadors that fall under this project were asked to become champions, basically, of tree planting and to take lead on education and awareness when it comes to the importance of propagation. And as we mentioned in our conversation today, saving seeds and getting the public to understand how important it is to have access to seeds and know the value of seeds. When me and Mr. Henry were talking about this earlier last week and leading up to this. And here we go.
Hi, we're Caribbean Tree Planting Ambassadors, and we're going to show you 5 steps on how to save your seeds so you can plant more trees. Let's go. Did you know you can plant a tree from more seeds? Let me show you how. Hi, my name is Brittany Burns. I am the Tree Planting Ambassador of Barbados, and these are the steps.
First, you place the seed in a paper towel and cover it. Then spray with water until damp. Now, you place the seed in moderate sunlight and monitor it to ensure that the soil stays moist.
I am Daniel from Jamaica, and I'm excited to now be at the stage of potting or seedling. Here we have a sprouted seed, and we'll also show you a potting mix. So the next step is to put the seedling into the soil and water it.
Finally, it's time to plant. All seeds come in different shapes and sizes, but once they show their shoot, it's ready to sow its roots so that it can bear more.
Hi, I'm Marissa from the Tree Planting Project in Cayman, and I'm the seed of the seedlings. Time to put it in the ground.
Greetings from the Bahamas. My name is Copeland Smith. I am a tree planting ambassador. It's time to get this daffodilly. And it's easy as that.
Now that you know what to do, save your seed.
And follow these steps to plant your own tree. Don't forget to hashtag us at Save a Seed Count on Instagram.
And remember, if we can save our seeds, we can save our future.
So that was our video that was created in a short space of time with our ambassadors taking lead. We might have had the best audio due to our connections, these with the online events, but feel free, everyone, to visit the Caribbean Alliance YouTube page and also our social pages where we have the video, and we're asking everyone if they can, share, promote, and just really help us take our efforts further by sharing around with your friends and family. That goes a very long way on social media, and to get the information out there that we need in order to get more trees in the ground. So now that we share the Save a Seed campaign, I would like, if it is we can all stay tuned for a little while longer. We are going to share a very short PowerPoint on what happened across Trinidad and the Caribbean, for Earth Day, April 22nd. So yes, on April 22nd, we celebrated Earth Day all across the Caribbean. Here is Sean and I and my down at the two schools at Salazar Trace and Point Fortin RC, meeting with the principals. We also have a flyer there that was created, and I want to make note of this. A young entrepreneur called Eco-Minded School and Life Supplies. She reached out to us to basically donate half of her sales for the month of April towards Earth Day and towards supporting our work on the ground. It was such a nice and inspiring reach out, and it shows so much that we need collaboration and support from the private sector. And if a young entrepreneur could reach out to us, I'm pretty sure the larger private sector entities would be able to find us and reach out to us as well. So that was such an inspirational day. We went quite down to the other end of the island, and we met with the two principals and teachers, and we're hoping to do some more online education with their classes. So you all could stay tuned and hear more about that. Next slide, please, Andrea. And of course, this is Jamila again. We're going to play a short interview that she took part in for Earth Day 2021. Just check the audio there, Andrea. Not too sure why the audio is not playing, but Jamila was interviewed. Jamila, could you please chime in here and just take us through the interview quickly, since the volume is not playing?
Across the Caribbean, so we have partnered with other Caribbean countries. It's 21 Caribbean countries.
We can probably start it from the
and we're a group of young ambassadors who are planting trees, to meet this goal.
So not only is the goal to plant more trees, Jamila, along with the Alliance, are advocating for a Caribbean Tree Planting Week with a petition on their website. Working with elementary and high schools, they've been planting trees across the island in tandem with organizations across the Caribbean.
Whether you're a musician, a doctor, whatever your role is on earth, you're human, and it is our duty to protect her because she's literally providing for us. And so one of my missions as a musician is my message to the people and the energies that we need to be bringing out forth, you know? So definitely it's a call of mine to make it known that it is important to give back to what is giving to you, which is earth.
A moment to remind ourselves of the beauty of our earth, our island home that has to be protected and nurtured to continue bearing our food and life. And into entertainment.
Right. So Jamila also has a plant and play campaign happening, and basically she's been doing a lot of groundwork to get this information going across Jamaica, the importance of the seed, saving the seed, and also through her music and artistry, the importance of tree planting. Okay, next slide. Andrea. So also in Jamaica with Shanika Wallace Graham, we have tree planting happening with some youngsters. I can't recall what tree that was, but this just demonstrates the work being done all across. I think Jamaica, we have 3 ambassadors. So this is Shanika Wallace Graham with her work in Jamaica, showcasing the young effort. We also have here Suriname, where Mr. Rainier Teos planted in Suriname with the District Commissioner, Ms. Surashka Sital Heraj Singh of the large district Wanika. So she also gave a speech during Suriname tree planting event on Earth Day and talked about the importance of trees, planting and working together. So that is Mr. Rainier, hard at work. This is also our ambassador at Suriname, Mr. Anwar, and he did tree planting as well too in Suriname on Earth Day. And they planted 30 palm trees, 12 fruit tree, trees. I would love to find out more about these type of trees. The 3 tree trees are special commitment trees between the organizations and were planting simultaneously on 3 locations, including 2 indigenous villages. So another demonstration, the importance of collaboration and working together to share resources. In the Bahamas, they had Earth Day celebrations as well too, and a beach cleanup. So phenomenal. The Sustainable Lifestyle Nonprofit Environmental Conservation Organization, in collaboration with the Cat Island Conservation Institute and the Caribbean Philanthropic Alliance and the Rotary Club of Nassau, held a beach cleanup and also tree planting at Saunders Beach on the Saturday after. So that would have been the 23rd. And this event was aimed to help rid the beach, of course, of various type of debris and waste, and also conserve the marine life and introduce a variety of native plants to the Saunders Beach. Next one. And yes, we have the Bahamas here as well too. And this program, this is the Help the Shore program, and it was done to demonstrate that we need to become more self-sustaining, and the fruit-bearing trees provide resources for building revenue streams. So we thought about sustainable incomes and to achieve the goal of partnership and community. So Mr. Rash Ameri, who is one of our ambassadors, charged the parliament to charge people to take charge of, talking to the parliamentarians about planting more trees, and we will get into the call to action at the end. And of course, visit the caribbeanphilalliance.org, where we're trying to promote the tree planting week, which we'll talk about at the end. And St. Kitts and Nevis, we had the Department of Youth, along with the Minister of Youth, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, celebrating Mother Earth Day by giving a toast with some youngsters who came out to celebrate. And the Ministry of Tourism, the Minister of Tourism, Mr. the Honorable Mark Brantley, also spent the day doing tree planting at sites where they're going to be a park that is being constructed. And of course, everyone joining in today, we really would love support for signing of the open letter, which is a call for the establishment of a Caribbean tree planting week. It is very important that we all get together, sign the letter, send it off to various heads of organizations, all types of organizations. You don't have to be an environmental organization to be involved in tree planting. As you all know, the trees are for the benefit of all of us. So head across to our Instagram and Facebook pages for Caribbean Tree Planting Project, and the individual pages across all the islands using the hashtag Caribbean Tree Planting Project, and of course Caribbean Tree Planting Week. If you have any challenges to find anything, just put in the hashtag and the internet will do the work for you and bring it up. And you could feel free to sign the letter and of course share it around. Thank you all so much for joining in today. Thank you, Mr. Henry, so much for lending your expertise and lending your ear to us and being able to share in this wonderful reflective day today. And stay tuned for more. So it was great to have everyone with us today. Thank you to the Facebook family for joining in. And please, let's all do our part to plant a tree, save a seed, and get the letter out to those heads of state, heads of government, heads of organizations, and sign the letter. If anybody has a comment or question, feel free to raise your hand very quickly. And if not, we'll wrap up.
Yes, I have a question, Talya. Do you hear me?
Yes, sure, Rania.
In regard, let me look what is going on here.
Rania, speak a little slower so we could hear you, okay? Speak a little slower. Yes. And maybe it's better to keep the camera off so we get better audio.
What is
That's all right, go ahead.
Camera. Okay, yes, it's okay now. It's only mute now. Okay.
Right, so the audio will be better.
Yeah, yes. You hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. With regard to increasing food security as part of our activities,
right?
I have two questions. First, how can we share special fruit trees among each other within the Caribbean region?
Right.
Secondly, how can we initiate or increase fruit export within the Caribbean region within this project?
Okay, so Darren, feel free to jump in on any questions. He asked, how can we create a mechanism to share the seeds better across the Caribbean, and how the other effect of that is how can we improve export and imports across the Caribbean islands with regard to our food being produced. What is your opinion on that?
Okay, in terms of sharing of the seeds, well, the seed bank, and we'll have to have that had to be done from a policy level, because each country will have restrictions in terms of movements of plant material and food, and we have to look at pests and disease in terms of moving pests and disease throughout the Caribbean. Species of mango might be infected with something, disease up the Caribbean island, or here in Trinidad and Tobago, they might want it up the island. So you have to, that has to be done at a high level discussion. Policymakers is possible, because this one is possible, but we just have to work out the necessary arrangement in terms of securing people, because each country regulation through customs with plant quarantine, and those things might be different. You have to get those persons or those people who are in charge of those areas involved in that conversation. Or we could start it.
But it could start. So that's a next quest for us at the high level Professor Rosalie. That's a quest for us to get conversation going on improvement in how we manage our food stock in the Caribbean, our seed bank. And of course, when we start to make those type of decisions and get the regulation going, that would help manage risk and help improve the sharing of resources. And Rainier, that will also answer the second question. We cannot talk about import and export of food across the Caribbean region without having these regulations in place and these regulation, legislation, and of course then organizations to help manage it. But it's a conversation that we need to start because of SDG number 2, food security, where all countries and all regions across the world are trying to ensure that they have access and a secure food stock to ensure that we could, in case of any global or increased global challenges, we have a way to protect our own citizens. And I think it's an important question. Thanks, Rainier, for that. And that would help if it is we get these things going, such as establishing a whole week. Imagine in one day, so much things got done on Earth Day towards planting trees. So imagine if it is we have a whole week. So if it is we get together and use our powers for having these action type of events and action oriented demonstrations, such as the call for action for the tree planting week, it will help set as a step in the right direction to what Rainier just asked about, which is establishing better procedure, policy, and action for the Caribbean region to manage our own food. So with that, a reminder again, please get the letter out, sign the letter yourself as a lead or head of your organization and get it to the next person. And so physically and of course digitally, you get the letter out in your own method and methodology towards establishing this week. And this way we hope that this would lead to improved conversation and collaboration among the islands to get our food security improved. All right. It was such a pleasure having everyone here today. A special thanks again to Mr. Darren Henry and all of those across the Caribbean, everybody tuning in. It was so wonderful to have everybody today. And we look forward to more collaboration and more events.
Thank you, Tyler.
You're welcome, Darren. All right, so thank you all for tuning in. Please feel free to share the Facebook link, which will be on our pages, and get it to everyone to view who can view it today at the time at the live event. So thank you very much. Feel free to drop us a line and of course share the letter. Bye.